Hello, everyone. Recently, I read aloud a speech that I wrote for the International Toastmasters called The Power of No. Inspired by my own need to build my own courage, this speech has now motivated and helped others to reach towards their potential. Today, I will share this short writing with you. I have not failed. I have just found 10,000 ways that won't work. This is a famous quote that you may have heard by Thomas Edison. For most people in life, there's a belief that progress only looks like a yes. Yes being a signal of success, and yes being a signal of acceptance. And no, well, that no told us it was something to avoid, something to personalize, something that we quietly stored away as evidence that maybe we weren't ready, weren't chosen, or weren't enough. So most of us learn in those moments to protect ourselves. We protect ourselves from a no. Our subconscious tells us that we protect ourselves to aim small, stay safe, and only to reach for the things that feel reasonably confident that we could get. But not long ago, I realized something different about myself. I realized I naturally ran. No, I chased after that rejection. Because when you avoid rejection, you also avoid possibility. So starting in 2026, I decided to do something a little bit different. I decided to start collecting no's on purpose. I created a project where my goal is not success, but to build courage, not to gain approval, but exposure. I'm intentionally applying for opportunities I may never get. Contests, awards, speaking engagements, collaborations, bold asks that make my heart beat faster. And for every single rejection, every single silence, every single not at this time, it goes into a tracker, not as proof of failure, but as proof that I showed up, proof that I stretched beyond the familiar edges of who I've been before. Because here's what I've learned. Rejection is not a stop sign. It's a green light signal. It tells us that we've reached far enough to touch something real. And no doesn't mean that you were wrong to try. It means that you were brave enough to ask. And that particular thing was not meant for you at this time. Too often, the pain of rejection isn't about the opportunity itself. It's about the story we tell ourselves in the space that follows. We allow that story to take hold into who we are without realizing those no's were never meant to define us in the first place. The project isn't about external opportunities, although of course they're always welcomed. It's about interrupting those internal narratives and challenging my own internal system. But what has surprised me most over the past few years of really putting myself out there is when you stop fearing the no, your world gets bigger. You begin to see opportunities everywhere, not because they suddenly appear or you've always looked just to gain something, but because you're finally willing to reach them. You find some of those no's turn into unexpected conversations or moments that stick with you for a lifetime. Some silences turn into redirections, because I'm a true believer that rejection is just redirection. But there it is. Every so often, that yes arrives. And not because you were perfect, but because you were present. And because you asked when someone else didn't. Because you chose courage over comfort. You stretched yourself beyond fear and opened yourself up to new possibilities. So, what are some examples of things that make the list? Well, last year I submitted poems to contest, my writing pieces to several publications, launched my business, applied to speak at 3 different meetup groups, ran my own meetup group, emailed or messaged 155 people across the world on LinkedIn, requested free tickets to shows, movies, concerts, and more. And you know what? 2025 had brought many of those opportunities to life. Some of those were yeses, some were a hard no, some I never heard from, and none the same, I am better for it. And if you're wondering some of those things that make the list, well, I can imagine it's pretty long this year. So I want to leave you with this question. What no are you avoiding right now? What opportunity have you quietly talked yourself out of before anyone else ever could? What might change, and instead of waiting to be chosen, you chose yourself again and again and again? Because courage isn't the absence of rejection. Courage is deciding your willingness to try is more important than the outcome. And sometimes the most meaningful growth begins with the moment we stop chasing the yes and start honoring the power of a no. If you've made it this far, thank you so much for being here. I appreciate your presence. Comment down below and let me know what the power of no means to you. And let me know some of the ways you'll be putting yourself out there and building that courage this year. Thank you so much. See you soon.